A. One thing before another.
I had written to her prior to meeting the committee. Formal or written style.
It was nice to be in Venice. Previously, I'd only been to Rome. Fairly formal. More informal would be, before that I
was in the office from 2:30. I was out earlier on.
The street is now called Treetop Avenue. Formerly, it was Hedge Lane. Fairly formal, typically written. Used when something has changed its name, state, etc.
Dinner will be ready in about an hour. In the meantime, relax and have a drink. Dinner will be ready in about an hour. Meanwhile, relax and have a drink.
B. Things happening at the same time.
She was entering at the very time I was leaving. She was entering at the very moment I was leaving. These two are stronger and more precise than as or just as.
The two events happened simultaneously.
During the war, she lived in Dublin.
Throughout the war, they remained in the city. C. One thing after another.
Read this personal statement by someone hoping to work for an international corporation in China. The words in bold are rather formal.
Following my first visit to Beijing, I read several books about China and subsequently decided to take a 6-month course in Mandarin Chinese. I revisited China on several occasions thereafter, and now feel that I have a good knowledge of the country and its culture.
Note also immediate, adjective. For example, the government removed the price regulations and the immediate result was a 10% price rise. D. Time when.
The moment I saw his face, I knew I'd met him before. The minute I saw his face, I knew I'd met him before.
I stayed in that hospital the time that I broke my leg. I stayed in that hospital the time I broke my leg.
I met Paula at Mark's wedding. On that occasion, she was with a different man. More formal.
E. Non-specific time expressions.
We can discuss the budget now. At a later stage, we can discuss the detailed arrangements.
At some point, we will have to replace our computers, but we're okay for the moment.
A. Words connecting sentence parts. In addition to if, there are several other words and phrases for expressing condition. 1.
You can't come in unless you have a ticket.
2.
You can borrow the bike on condition that you return it by 5 o'clock.
3.
In case of fire, dial 112.
4.
You can stay as long as, or so long as, you don't mind sleeping on the sofa. As long as is less formal than so long as, and less formal and not so strong as on condition that.
5.
Provided you don't mind cats, you can stay with us. Providing you don't mind cats, you can stay with us. Providing that, provided, and provided that can also be used in examples 2 and 4. They are less formal and not so strong as on condition that, but stronger and more restricting than as long as and so long as.
B. Supposing and what if. Note the use of supposing and what if, both usually found in spoken language, for possible situations in the future. What if is more direct.
Ethan's coming tomorrow. He'll help us.
Supposing he doesn't turn up, what shall we do then?
Ethan's coming tomorrow. He'll help us.
What if he doesn't turn up? What shall we do then?
C. Conditions with ever. The ever suffix means it does not matter which. The stress is normally on ever.
What's the best way to travel in your country?
However you decide to travel in this country, it'll cost you a lot of money. For example, you'll end up paying at least €70, whichever means of transport you take from the airport to the city centre, train or bus. Public transport is expensive wherever you go here. Whoever wins the next election should try to lower fares.
These sentences can also be expressed using no matter. Note the stress.
No matter how you decide to travel in this country, it will cost you a lot of money. No matter who wins the next election, they should try to lower fares.
D. Some nouns which express condition. Certain conditions must be met before the peace talks can begin. Rather formal. A good standard of English is a prerequisite for studying at a British university. What are the entry requirements for doing a diploma in management at your college? I would not move to London under any circumstances. Fairly formal. A. Cause and reason. You probably know how to use words like because, since, and as to refer to the cause of or reason for something. Here are some other ways to express cause and reason.
The collision was due to the icy conditions.
The collision was caused by ice on the road.
The cause of the collision was ice on the road.
The heavy rain caused the river to flood.
Owing to the icy conditions, the two cars collided.
Here are some other cause words and typical contexts. They are all rather formal and more suitable for written use.
The rise in prices sparked off a lot of political protest. The rise in prices sparked a lot of political protest. Often used for very strong, perhaps violent reactions to events.
The President's statement gave rise to a lot of criticism. The President's statement provoked a lot of criticism. The President's statement generated a lot of criticism. Slightly less strong than spark or spark off.
The new law has brought about great changes in education. The new law has led to great changes in education. Often used for political or social change.
This problem stems from the inflation of recent years, explaining the direct origins of events and states.
The court case arose from allegations made in a newspaper. The court case arose out of allegations made in a newspaper. The allegations started the process that led to the court case.
B. Reasons for and purposes of doing things.
Her reason for not going with us was that she had no money. Or, the reason why she didn't go with us was that. Less formal.
The following sentences are all fairly formal and more frequent in written English.
I wonder what his motives were in sending that email. Purpose.
I wonder what prompted her to send that message. Reason or cause.
She wrote to the press with the aim of exposing the scandal. Purpose. I've invited you here with a view to resolving our differences. Sounds a bit more indirect than with the aim of.
He refused to answer on the grounds that his lawyer wasn't there. Reason.
The purpose of her visit was to inspect the equipment.
C. Results. Most of these expressions are fairly formal and more frequent in written English.
He did no work. As a result, he failed his exams. He did no work. As a consequence, he failed his exams. He did no work. Consequently, he failed his exams.
The result of all these changes is that no one is happy anymore. The consequence of all these changes is that no one is happy anymore.
The examples with consequence or consequently sound more formal than result.
His remarks resulted in everyone getting angry. Verb and in.
The events had an outcome that no one could have predicted.
The upshot of all these problems was that we had to start again. Less formal than outcome.
When the election results were announced, chaos ensued. Very formal.
A. Verbs of concession. Concession means accepting one part of an idea or fact, but putting another, more important argument or fact against it. It can be expressed with a conjunction. For example, although they were poor, they were independent. Or an adverb. For example, he is a bit stupid. He's very kind, nevertheless. Or through verbs like those in the table below. Example. Paraphrase and comments.
I acknowledge that he has worked hard, but it isn't enough. Or, I accept that he has worked hard, but it isn't enough. Paraphrase and comments. I agree, but... Accept is less formal than acknowledge. I admit I was wrong, but I still think we were right to doubt her. I accept I'm guilty of what I'm accused of. I concede that you are right about the goal, but not the method. You have won this point in our argument. Rather formal, used in debates and arguments.
B. Adverbs and other phrases showing contrast. These examples are fairly informal.
Okay, you're sorry. That's all well and good, but how are you going to pay us back? Okay, you're sorry. That's all very well, but how are you going to pay us back?
You shouldn't seem so surprised. After all, I did warn you.
It's all very well saying you love dogs, but who will take it for walks if we do get one?
He is boring, and he is rather cold and unfriendly, but for all that he is your uncle, and we should invite him.
These examples are more formal.
Admittedly, she put a lot of effort in, but it was all wasted.
I thought she didn't like me. In fact, the reverse was true.
In Europe, they use metric measurements. In contrast, the USA still uses many non-metric measurements.
It's not actually raining now. On the other hand, it may rain later, so take the umbrella.
We're not almost there at all. Quite the opposite. We've got 5 miles to go yet.
C. Collocating phrases for contrast.
When it comes to politics, Jamie and Isla are poles apart.
There's a world of difference between being a friend and a lover.
There's a great divide between city residents and people who live in the country.
A yawning gap divides the rich and poor in many countries.
There's a huge discrepancy between his ideals and his actions.
A. Expressions for linking sentences or clauses.
Sentence or clause 1. For this job, you need a degree. And in addition or additionally. Sentence or clause 2. You need at least 2 years' experience. For this job, you need a degree. Additionally, you need at least 2 years' experience. Smartphones are becoming more sophisticated. Furthermore, they are becoming cheaper. Smartphones are becoming more sophisticated. Moreover, they are becoming cheaper. Smartphones are becoming more sophisticated. What's more, they are becoming cheaper. Children should respect their parents. Equally, they should respect their teachers. Children should respect their parents. Likewise, they should respect their teachers. We'll have all the stress of going to court and giving evidence. On top of all that, we'll have to pay the lawyers' bills. Furthermore and moreover are normally interchangeable and are both rather formal. What's more is informal. What is more is rather formal. On top of all that is emphatic, used mostly in informal spoken English. You can also use plus. For example, to keep fit, you need a good diet plus regular exercise. Or, to keep fit, you need a good diet plus you need regular exercise. Normally used to connect noun phrases, but can connect clauses in informal speech.
B. Expressions at the end of sentences or clauses.
They sell chairs, tables, beds, and so on. They sell chairs, tables, beds, etc. And so on is more informal than etc.
It'll go to the committee, then to the board, then to another committee, and so on and so forth.
He was a good sportsman and an excellent musician into the bargain.
He was a good sportsman and an excellent musician to boot.
C. Expressions that begin or come in the middle of sentences and clauses.
Further to my telephone call to you yesterday, I am now writing to formal opening for a letter or email.
In addition to winning the gold medal, she also broke the world record.
In addition to his BA in history, he has a PhD in sociology. Fairly formal.
Alongside her full-time job as a dentist, she does voluntary conservation work at weekends.
I have to go to the bank today as well as getting my hair cut.
Besides having a salary, he also has a private income.
Apart from having a salary, he also has a private income.
Apart from her many other hobbies, she restores old racing cars.
Joe Evans was there, along with a few other people who I didn't know.
Joe Evans was there, together with a few other people who I didn't know.
A. Text referring words. Text referring words take their meaning from the surrounding text. For example, this sentence in isolation does not mean much.
We decided to look at the problem again and try to find a solution.
What problem? The words problem and solution help organize the argument of the text, but they do not tell us the topic of the text. They refer to something somewhere else. Here are some examples. The word in bold refers to the underlined words.
Pollution is increasing. The problem is getting worse each day.
Should taxes be raised or lowered? This was the biggest issue in the election.
Whether the war could have been avoided is a question that interests historians.
Let's discuss crime. That's always an interesting topic.
Punishment is only one aspect of crime.
B. Problem-solution words. Text-referring words are often used with problem-solution types of text, where a problem is presented and ways of solving it are discussed. In the following example, the words in bold concern a problem or a solution. Try to learn these words as a family.
The situation in our cities with regard to traffic is going from bad to worse. Congestion is a daily feature of urban life. The problem is now beginning to affect our national economies. Unless a new approach is found to control traffic, we will never find a solution to the dilemma.
In the dialogue below, two politicians are arguing. Note how the words in bold refer to parts of the argument.
Your claim that we're doing nothing to invest in industry is false. We invested £10 billion last year. You've ignored this fact.
But the investment has all gone to service industries. The real point is that we need to invest in our manufacturing industries.
That argument is out of date in a modern technological society. Our position has always been that we should encourage technology.
But that view won't help to reduce unemployment.
The following problem-solution words are grouped in families associated with the underlined keywords. The prepositions normally used with them are given in brackets.
Situation. State of affairs. Position. With regard to.
Problem, difficulty, crisis, matter.
Response to. Reaction to. Attitude to. Approach to.
Solution. Answer to. Resolution to. Key to. Way out of.
Evaluation. Of the solution. Assessment. Judgment.
Economically, the government is in a critical position. This state of affairs is partly a result of the financial difficulties currently being experienced globally. Our government's initial response to the situation was to impose higher taxes. This approach has not proved to be the solution to the problem. Economists' current assessment is that this may, in fact, be making matters worse.
A. What are discourse markers? Discourse markers are expressions which organize, comment on, or in some way frame what we are saying. An example is, well.
So you live in Boston?
Well, near Boston.
Well here shows that the speaker is aware he or she is changing the direction of the conversation in some way, not giving the expected yes answer. Another example is how teachers use words like right and okay to organize what is happening in a classroom.
Right, let's have a look at exercise 3. OK, let's have a look at exercise 3.
B. Organizing a conversation. Here are some common expressions which organize the different stages of a conversation.
Now, what shall we do next?
So, would you like to come to the table now, please?
Good. I'll ring you on Thursday then.
Well then, what was it you want to talk about?
Now then, I want you to look at this picture. Said by someone in control of the conversation. For example, a teacher.
Fine, let's meet again next week then, shall we? Great, let's meet again next week then, shall we? Often used to close conversations.
So, where was I? I was telling you about my aunt. Often used after an interruption or to come back to the main topic or story.
C. Modifying and commenting on what you say. In these mini-dialogues, the expressions in bold modify or comment on what is being said.
It's cold, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mind you, it's November, so it's not surprising.
What's her number?
Let me see. I have it here somewhere.
It's quite a problem.
Listen, why don't you let me sort it out? Look, why don't you let me sort it out?
Would you? Thanks a lot.
And he said he was going...
Well, that's typical.
Hang on, let me tell you what he said. Hold on, let me tell you what he said.
D. Other useful discourse markers.
I can't do that. You see, I'm not the boss here. Explaining.
He was, sort of just standing there. Hesitation.
He was wearing this kind of cowboy hat. Not sure of the best way to say something. He was wearing this, cowboy hat.
So that's what we have to do. Anyway, I'll ring you tomorrow. The speaker thinks the topic can change, or the conversation can now close.
It rained all day yesterday. Still, we can't complain. It was fine all last week. It rained all day yesterday. On the other hand, we can't complain. It was fine all last week. Contrasts two ideas or points.
We shouldn't be too hard on him. I mean, he's only a child. Making clear what you mean.
In informal spoken language, people often use the letters of the alphabet, usually no more than A, B, and C, to list points they want to make.
Why aren't you going this evening?
Well, A, I haven't got any money, and B, it's too far anyway.
It is often difficult to hear these expressions when they are used in rapid speech. But when you are in a position to listen in a relaxed way to someone speaking English, for example, if you are not the person being spoken to, or you are listening to informal speech on radio or TV or in a film, it is easier to concentrate on listening for discourse markers.
A. Organising a formal text.
First, or firstly, or first of all, we must consider. Next, it is important to remember that.
Secondly and thirdly are also used with first and firstly for lists.
Finally, or lastly, we should recall that coming to the final point on a list.
Turning to the question of foreign policy, changing to a new topic.
Leaving aside the question of pollution, there are also other reasons. The writer will not deal with that question here.
In parenthesis, let us not forget that making a point that is a side issue, not part of the main argument.
In summary, or to sum up, we may state that listing or summing up the main points.
In some, the economic issues are at the centre of this debate, listing or summing up the main points. Much more formal.
In conclusion, or to conclude, I should like to point out that... Finishing the text.
B. Linking words for explaining, exemplifying, rephrasing, etc.
To learn new words properly, a lot of recycling is needed. In other words, you have to study the same words over and over again. That is to say, is much more formal. To learn new words properly, a lot of recycling is needed. That is to say, you have to study the same words over and over again. That is to say, is much more formal.
Some English words are hard to pronounce. For example, eighth. Some English words are hard to pronounce. For instance, eighth.
It might be possible, say, to include the parents in the discussion. Similar to, for example, note the commas before and after. Say is also common in spoken English.
The Parliament has different committees. Briefly, these consist of two main types.
She is, so to speak, living in a world of her own. She is, as it were, living in a world of her own. Makes what you are saying sound less definite or precise. As it were is more formal.
C. Referring backwards and forwards in the text.
The following points will be covered in this essay, used to introduce a list.
It was stated above, or earlier, that the history of the USA is...
See page 238 for more information.
Many writers have claimed this. See below.
A full list is given over leaf.
For further details, see Chapter 4. For further discussion, see Chapter 4.
May I refer you to page 3 of my last letter to you?
With reference to your email of the 12th of March, often used at the beginning of a letter or email to link it with an earlier text, formal.
A. Idioms connected with communication problems.
So, see you then.
Friday.
Monday.
Yes. They're talking at cross purposes.
I really like you as a friend.
Wow, she's in love with me.
He's got the wrong end of the stick.
And
that means, but if not, it could be,
why...
and another thing. She can't get a word in edgeways.
Notwithstanding any other proviso not stated.
He can't make head or tail of what she's saying.
B. Good talk, bad talk.
The boss always talks down to us.
My workmates are always talking behind my back.
It was just small talk, nothing more, I promise.
Let's sit somewhere else. They always talk shop over lunch and it bores me rigid.
Hey, your new friend's become a real talking point among the staff. Did you know?
It's gone too far this time. I shall have to give him a talking to.
C. Talk in discussions, meetings, etc.
Who's going to start the ball rolling?
To put it in a nutshell, this is a waste of time.
I hope they get to the point soon.
I want to speak my mind today.
I hope we wrap up the discussion by 12:30.
I hope Will speaks. He always talks sense.
Sophie always talks rubbish.
Alex is so long-winded.
A. Common noun suffixes.
Is used for the person who does an activity. For example, writer, painter, worker, shopper, teacher. You can use with a wide range of verbs to make them into nouns.
Sometimes the suffix is written as or. It is still pronounced It is worth making a special list of these words as you meet them. For example, actor, donor, operator, sailor, supervisor.
ER and OR are also used for things which do a particular job. For example, pencil sharpener, bottle opener, grater, projector, stapler, coat hanger.
ER and double E, pronounced E, can contrast with each other, meaning person who does something, ER, and person who receives or experiences the action, double E. For example, employer and employee, sender, addressee, payee, for example, of a sum of money.
TION, SION, and ION are used to form nouns from verbs. For example, complication, pollution, reduction, alteration, donation, promotion, admission, action.
Ist and ism are used for people's politics, beliefs and ideologies, and sometimes their profession. Compare with ER and OR professions above. For example, Marxist, typist, physicist, terrorist, Buddhism, journalism.
Ist is also often used for people who play musical instruments. For example, pianist, violinist, cellist.
Ness is used to make nouns from adjectives. For example, goodness, readiness, forgetfulness, happiness, sadness, weakness. Note what happens to adjectives that end in Y.
B. Adjective suffixes.
ABLE or IBLE, ubble, with verbs means can be done. For example, drinkable, washable, readable, forgivable, edible, flexible.
C. Verbs.
ISE or IZE, which is more common in American English, eyes, forms verbs from adjectives. For example, modernize, commercialize, industrialize, computerize.
D. Other suffixes that can help you recognize the word class.
MENT, nouns, excitement, enjoyment, replacement.
ITY, nouns, flexibility, productivity, scarcity.
Hood, abstract nouns, especially family terms. Childhood, motherhood, brotherhood.
Ship, abstract nouns, especially status. Friendship, partnership, membership.
IVE, adjectives, active, passive. In language, the passive is when the receiver of an action becomes the subject. For example, the bank was robbed. Productive.
AL, adjectives, brutal, legal. Nouns, refusal, arrival.
OUS, adjectives, delicious, outrageous, furious.
FUL. Adjectives. Hopeful, useful, forgetful.
LESS. Adjectives. Useless, harmless, homeless.
IFY. Verbs. Beautify, purify, terrify.
The informal suffix ish can be added to most common adjectives, ages and times to make them less precise. For example, she's 30-ish. He has reddish hair. Come about 8-ish.